Yeah.
Yes, you
Am I
are
audible?
audible. Yes, you are
Okay,
audible.
thank you. Mr. Anil Swarup is an Indian author and former civil servant belonging to Indian Administrative Service of Uttar Pradesh. He's a postgraduate in political science from the University of Allahabad in 1978, where he was awarded Chancellor's Gold Medal for being the best all-round student. Before joining IS, he has worked as an Indian Police Officer Service for 1 year. He joined IS in 1981 and is the recipient of Director's Gold Medal for Best Officer Trainee of his batch at Labasna. He has served in various key positions for both the Union government and the government of Uttar Pradesh, like as Education Secretary of India, Coal Secretary of India, Additional Secretary in the Cabinet Secretariat of India, Additional Secretary of Labour and Empowerment, Export Commissioner in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of India, and as the DM of Lakhimpur Kheri, which is my birthplace as well. He has authored Ethical Dilemma of a Civil Servant and Not Just a Civil Servant. After his retirement, he has started a movement, Nexus of Good, which is a foundation to identify, understand, appreciate, propagate, replicate, and scale good work. We are deeply obliged, and it is an honor to have you with us, sir, for this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Very good morning to you.
So, without any further ado, sir, one of the highlights of this particular policy, national education policy, is the focus on the mother tongue as a medium of instruction. However, considering where we are at now, we are talking about globalization, integrated world. How practical is it to move away from English or shed English and focus on our mother tongue and these vernacular languages?
This observation of yours is based on perhaps an erroneous understanding of human mind. All researchers have clearly established that it is easier for a child to comprehend complex concepts in his or her mother tongue much better than in an alien tongue. And it is true world over that the initial few years, a child has to be taught in mother tongue because his comprehension is much better in mother tongue. Unfortunately, on accounts of 200 years of British rule, we have come to believe that it is only when you teach in English language that you will understand better, which is incorrect. The policy does not say that you should not be teaching English. The policy also does not say that in the later years, you should not use English as a medium of instruction. What it says is the initial years of child, he or she should be taught in mother tongue because that is based on research. And not many people understand that. We go by the bias that we have for English. Policy does not say English should not be the medium. It says that in the initial years, the preferred medium should be mother tongue because that's the best way for a child to understand. And as I said earlier, this is based on research, not a personal view. So this has to be understood very clearly. I think mother tongue is the way forward in the initial years for understanding because that's the language you speak at home. That's the language you are comfortable with to begin with. So when you start learning things in life, that language actually matters a lot.
Yes, sir.
And
So, sir,
I'd also like to add this misapprehension that people have about mother tongue. The best school in Delhi teaches in mother tongue for the first 5 years, which is Sardar Patel Vidyalaya. My son studied there and I know it for sure. The Navodaya Vidyalayas, which produce fantastic students, teach in mother tongue in the first 8 years. So it's wrong to say that teaching in mother tongue will not enable a child to be prepared for a globalized world. It is incorrect.
yes, sir. So this policy says that children will be given a logical framework for making ethical decision. Now, how do you choose what is ethical and what is unethical? Because something that is ethical to you may be unethical to me and vice versa. So, that is going to be a problem. So, sir, what is the solution?
You are absolutely correct. Values are personal in nature. But the key is whether I equip you intellectually and emotionally to make a choice that you want to make without any choice being imposed on you. That is what this policy says. This policy says that the education should enable you to think on your own, based on reason, based on scientific temper. That's what the policy says. So policy if implemented, and that's a very big if it is implemented, will enable the child to examine, rationalize, rather than merely do rote learning. It's not merely facts that policy focuses on. It focuses on your capacity to understand, analyze situations and facts as well. So the objective of the policy is to enable the child to learn rather than make him learn.
Yes.
Correct, sir. Uh, Sir, until now, all kinds of universities, whether it is deemed central university, we had different set of rules for every kind of university. However, national education policy is bringing all of them under one set of rules. How important it is and what all effects and impact it will have on universities as well as students.
Yeah, I never handled higher education, but I have my view on this particular issue as an individual. Of course, I had some exposure to it as school education secretary, but basically I never handled that as a sector. You know, higher education is something which needs to be, in a way, released as well as regulated. Why? Because there has to be an overall framework, a national framework within which higher education has to happen. And hence, the contention in the policy that there should be a broad national framework worked out for higher education is well founded. That is how it should be. Because if you look at some of the higher education institutions and the children that pass out of it, they can't even qualify for a much lower education qualification, and they get degrees, and some of them even get PhDs. And if you talk to them, if you interact with them, they don't have anything worth in them to even get those degrees or get those PhDs. So it is important to see that the quality that gets given in these higher educational institutions, and this is true of school education also, has to improve and has to conform to a particular standard. Right now, those standards are differently determined. Of course, UGC is there, the overarching body, but I think it requires some more to be done. What policy also says in terms of splitting the regulatory framework and the financial framework. UGC performs both the functions. It provides funds as well as a regulatory framework. So the policy also, if I remember it correctly, talks of splitting these roles, but creating a national framework to set standards for the higher education institutions.
Yes, sir. Sir, another question, that in the current system, we have single entry system and now multiple entry system has come up, along with single regulator all over India. So, sir, what do you think how important this is in context of encouraging students towards research and development?
Again, as I said, higher education is not my forte. I never handled that. But my reading is very clear, as I said, that the entrance system has to improve. Right now, the entrance into higher education happens through marks obtained in class 12. And this is a racket. Why a racket? If you read my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, and the other one, there I have talked about education mafias. And I have not understood how children get 100 out of 100 in English literature. In fact, Shakespeare must be turning in his grave. When I was education secretary, when I got to know about it, I inquired into it and wanted to ascertain how can it happen. No one can have 100% marks in English literature. Then I discovered that almost all the boards, including CBSE, they spike marks beyond the actual marks that are given to the children. So for example, if you got 85, your mark sheet will reflect 95 because the board would have spiked 95% marks. So the marks that you get through these board examinations are not the true reflection of what you are. Then I tried to understand why is this happening. And I was informed that since universities like Delhi University base their admission on the marks given in class 12, every board spikes these marks to get admission there. So you have a state where there were a number of students who got very good marks and they failed here in Delhi University. They got admission on the basis of those class 12 marks. So again, when I was education secretary, I called all the state board chairmen and chairpersons, as well as the CBSE chairperson, for a discussion in Delhi. And I told them this, that what is this racket going on? So they all agreed. They all agreed not to spike marks. Okay. But as luck would have it, someone went to the High Court and High Court granted a stay. After which I retired and that racket continues. Now, how to contain that racket? The way of containing it, remove the cause of spiking of marks. The cause was admissions. So what the new education policies or national education policy says is that they will have a separate entrance exam. Once that happens, the premium on marks to be given beyond what is deserved by the individual will go down, and hence hopefully marks will not be spiked, and the marks that a child gets would be a true reflection of what he actually is rather than what the board tells him to be.
Yes, sir. So, sir, what are your concluding remarks about this national education policy?
You know, it's one of the finest. It is one of the finest documents that I come across. It has given some very, very positive things which will improve, at least in the school education, if implemented, will improve the quality of education. There are just 2 points on which I have some reservations. But let me tell you first that the focus on teacher education and the teachers training is extremely important, because I have always felt teachers lie at the pivot of school education, and the education policy talks about them at length and provides also the way forward. Also, the focus on early childhood education was much needed. All researchers have proved that in the early years of a child, his mind is made up, and hence it was important. And I'm glad that the national education policy talks about it. There are many positive features in the policy, but the problem is, where is the money? National education policy says 6% of the GDP should be allocated to education. Now, if you look at the current budget, the allocation has actually come down from the previous year. You know, it's a shocker. I couldn't believe it. That on the one hand, we are talking of national education policy, doing this, that, and everything. But if you don't have the money to implement that, how is the education policy going to be implemented? So this country has had wonderful policies, not only in education, otherwise. The real problem in policies is implementation. In fact, when Dr. Kasturirangan met me, when I was education secretary, and asked me my suggestions, I told him, you are wasting your time. And he was a bit surprised. Then I explained to him that unless you work out an action plan along with the policy, what will this policy do? We'll just keep discussing. Nothing will happen on the ground. The common man is more concerned about action on the ground and not what we talk about. And action on the ground will be dependent, apart from other factors, also on the money to back that policy. Unfortunately, this budget does not provide for that money. Money has actually come down. I wonder who wants what. The policy is good, but implementation would be a real challenge.
Correct, sir. Sir, lastly, your message to our audience, which majorly comprises of law students.
Comprises?
Of law students and members
law
of legal
students. Okay, all law students have a very, very important role to play. You know, I typically say that when British left this country, they took justice with them, left behind laws, in-laws, and outlaws. So we are obsessed with laws without delivering justice. And hence, students who are doing law and look law as a profession should be focused on delivering justice. Law is an instrument to deliver justice. Law can never be an end in itself. That, I think, has to be kept in mind by everyone who's studying law, that the idea of law or the objective or the purpose of law is to deliver justice. And it is much beyond law. Use law as an instrument to deliver good. Use law as an instrument to deliver justice. Use law as an instrument to serve the poorest of the poor, not the richest of the rich, as is the case in most of the, as is the case now in most of the cases.
Correct, sir. For your insightful views, and we, on behalf of Law Culture, are thankful that you spared time for us from your extremely busy schedule.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.